the founder CEO of Rapid Acceleration Partners, a 40 under 40 leader, but most importantly, a veteran in the automation space who has dedicated his life to democratizing AI across industries. And he leads Rapid Acceleration Partners. We have been in the space for over 5 years, but in this short span of time, we have worked across 7 industries, handled millions of content pieces and data, worked with more than 45 million iterations. But the best news for you all is that all our bots are in utilization till date. So, and what are we going to talk about today? What will you be seeing and listening today? We will be talking about our obsession with AI automation and how we have built our platform to democratize the solution across industries. So we are talking about 2 platforms. One is the RapFlow AI development platform that lets our users create solutions without the need for data scientists, a very flexible, robust, scalable AI development platform, and combine it with our RapBot intelligent RPA platform that helps you automate mundane, boring tasks of your everyday operations, especially in accounting. So you will hear Raghu talk more about Chargeback and how intelligent automation can help in winning more chargeback cases. And though we have been in the industry for a short span, the industry has recognized us, and the latest is that we were named the most promising startup of 2022 by ITserve Synergy, the annual conference that happened last year. And so we have a large list of clientele. This is a representative clientele list for your perusal. So without much further delay, I would like to hand the stage over to Raghu, and stay tuned.
Thanks, Vinay. Good morning to everyone here. Right, without much ado, I'll just jump in here. So today, the topic for today's discussion is how do you actually boost chargeback wins with IPA, right? So we'd like to start off with kind of pointing out the current chargeback reality, right? I mean, how we've seen processes work in multiple hospitality companies that we work with, right? How do you actually break that chargeback cycle down, right, into problems that we need to address, right? And then how do you actually streamline chargebacks with an IPA platform like ours, right? That's kind of so we actually in preparation for this webinar, we ran a survey to registrants and our hospitality contacts and kind of asked them what do you think is the average cost of a single chargeback, right? I mean, when you say cost, it's a loaded cost, right? It could be value of the chargeback, it could be the value of like the merchant fees, a penalty that you need to pay, right? All of that put together, right? So the highest response that we got for on the survey was $150, right? That is pretty close. The reason you see the $190 in green color is the real number is close to $190, right? Most users were pretty close with the $150, but the reality is there is about $190 is what I mean. Now this is based on $190 number is based on an average chargeback rate of chargeback value of about $90. Right now, this corroborates with general industry data that's available in the hospitality industry, as well as data that we've seen with companies that we work with. Right now, if that's the kind of money that you're leaving with, right? I mean, chargeback is a very tricky thing, right? It's a kind of a sneaky thing because this is revenue that you already booked, right? And that is being taken away from you So you're essentially losing money that you already earned, right? Now, let that sink in, right? You lose money that you already earned, so you don't want to leave money back on the table, right? So how do you actually ensure that you don't leave money back on the table, right? So the current reality is, right, it's a very disjoint process, largely dependent on the property, right? So with many hospitality management companies that we work with, we see that there is the merchant or acquirer. There could be portals, there could be printed statements, there could be multiple ways that these chargeback data is presented to them, right? And then the properties typically handle pull out data from the PMS and then respond to those chargeback requests. And a bulk of the win-loss is completely dependent on how that process works amongst them, right? Now, at the corporate end, right, there is absolutely no visibility, right? You're kind of walled to what is happening, and you're kind of oblivious to what's happening at the property level, right? There is really very little knowledge or visibility or control to what is happening at that end, right? So what does this mean in terms of a process bottleneck, right? So before we jump in there, we'd like to run a quick poll, right? If you can, the poll coming up on the screen now, if you can take a minute and answer that. Okay, it's about a minute, I think. So that's the result for today, right? Like we know pretty much every one of these is problems that exist, right? Albeit at different levels of intensity, right? So one, at a corporate level, there is very little visibility on whether chargebacks are being responded to on time, right? There is very little visibility on win rates, right? What kind of chargebacks are we winning or losing, right? We don't know if the right evidence or documents are being presented. And like you said, like 50% of the audience shows all of the above, which means all of these problems exist in a very disjointed environment, right? So that being said, right, I'd like to just point out the specific case in point with a larger hospitality management firm. This is an owner operator, right? 90+ properties, 20,000 plus rooms, right? Again, the reason that we chose this particular example is, again, chargeback is not an issue just with smaller management owner operator firms that find it difficult to be able to coordinate. Even in extremely large organizations that are very organized in systems and processes, find it very difficult because it's a very disjoint process, right? So we saw that we started working with this company some time ago, and we found that their average chargeback win rates was about 15%. Now, we did a little bit of a deep dive and said, hey, here are some, we know this number is like 15% overall, but what does that mean in terms of spectrum of properties that they had, right? So here is one example of a property which was within the same company, a property that wasn't doing very well, right? Like they had, like, the initial part of last year, 6-month period, before we automated this process, they received about 72 chargebacks. Again, putting this in perspective, the number of chargebacks for the first half of last year, right, marred with the Omicron and things like that, there was a bit of a slowdown at that time, but 72 chargebacks, they allowed 68 of those to expire, right? Revenue loss was about $27,000 in that half year. right? But their chargeback win rate was about 4.17%, right? That was the number that they were shooting for, right? Obviously, significant improvement possibility was there. Then there was the better performing property. Right now, this is at the almost the other end of the spectrum that was there, right? They received 177 chargebacks, about 26% chargeback win rate, right? They still allowed a significant number of cases to expire, about 115 cases to expire, right? And about $38,000 in revenue loss, right? So even with the significant chargeback win rate, they were still losing about $38,000 over a half-year period, right? So again, while they were at a slightly better situation, there still was significant room for improvement, right? Now, what did this mean from where we started with them, right? Now, what were the problems that are there, right? Like we looked at, all of you had pointed out those issues that you had, and then this is what we see in general with the industry wherever we work with, right? Obviously, the critical levers for success are first is visibility, right? Do we know what kind of chargebacks are coming in, when they come in, right? Because I have to keep checking to see if there is chargebacks that are coming in. Similarly, at a corporate level, visibility to, hey, what are we getting, right? How do we make sure? So for someone at the property level, either at the front office, right, who's handling these requests, for them, it's an additional load that they need to do among many other things, right? So this is something that they could lose sight of. So that visibility is a very critical factor to ensure that they are able to stay on top of this. The second is timely response. Obviously, there is an expiration for each of these chargeback requests. How do you ensure that you respond on time with the right documentation or evidence, right? That's the one. The third is, this is a very human dependent system. So there is property, at a property level, you could have some very, very enterprising front office or general managers who ensure that the processes work really well and they're able to win a significant percentage. So how do you actually standardize that process across your portfolio? How do you cross-pollinate best practices from one property to the other, right? And also, as you have more and more data and visibility, how do you identify patterns and say, hey, these are the kind of chargeback requests that we win. If we do these kinds of responses or evidences, right, we tend to end up winning a bulk of the chargebacks and stuff like that, right? So what are those patterns? What are those elements that allow us to significantly continue to win, right? That is, it's a very critical lever for success within this process, right? Now, how does IPA really allow you to move those critical levers, right? So the stakeholders broadly still remain the same, right? There is the acquirer or the merchant. There could be one or more merchants that each property works with, right? And then there is the property, and then the property has access to the PMS, and then there is the corporate, right? Now, think of the IPA as something that is central to how it works, right? Like it acts as the go-by between the property and the acquirer, right? As well as the controller. So essentially working on the acquirer system, looking at what chargebacks have come in, right? If in most cases, go to the PMS, pull data directly. In some cases, go to the property, ask for additional documentation, evidence, if you will. And in this whole process, keep providing that visibility to the corporate to say, hey, this is something that's happening. These are the requests that we've got so far. This is the win rate. We allowed this to expire. So that way there is an escalation that's built in, right? And stuff like that. So essentially giving a lot more control over the process, and thus allowing for increasing wins through the process, right? So how does this work, right? So one, how does it help move those levers within that ecosystem, right? One, from a timely response standpoint, right? Either in cases where there is data available within the PMS system, right? The IPS system is able to directly pull data and then respond to those, right? Where it's not able to access the PMS, right? In those cases, timely reminders to the property around the type of chargeback, with specific eliciting specific documentation that is required to be able to dispute that, right? It provides complete real-time visibility to the property as well as the corporate, so we know who's working on something, where it is lying, right, at any point in time, right? There is an easy identification of the document trail. We know exactly what evidences we provided, right? All of that trail is maintained, right? Standardization of the process.